You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today. But before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. And finally, our third sponsor is 988. The Oklahoma 988 Mental Health Lifeline. 988 is a direct 3-digit lifeline that connects you with trained behavioral health professionals that can get all Oklahomans the help that they need. Learn more by visiting 988oklahoma.com. That's 988oklahoma.com. And now, let's get into today's episode. Bringing you a cycle episode today. It's something that I would like to get into. I did get into it for a little bit. Got a cheapish road bike, but I'm a bit of a wuss, so I went to the golf course instead and don't cycle in the cold, but I'll play golf in the cold. Anyway, we're going to dive into the gravel scene and the cycling scene in Oklahoma. My guests today, Alan and Jennifer White. Excited to dive into that. The late Michelle who introduced us today and brought you in, she puts your names, I think, out there. I'm like, who's coming in? And I said, I think it's Jenny Whitehouse Commander and Gravel Dot. And she's like... Sorry, what? So I for the long time I thought your name was Whitehouse, not White. Anyway, thank you so much for coming in. It's a pleasure to finally meet you guys. I guess we'll start with Alan. Obviously, you're from Belfast.
Yeah.
Which is
Two of us talk
Wales,
funny.
So we talk funny, but you still have your accent a lot thicker than I do.
It comes and goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certain words. Yeah.
Let's start with how you end up here.
Oof. I moved to Oklahoma in '95. Yeah.
Do you meet before you move here?
No.
Okay.
So I came here on growing up in Belfast. There's this whole Protestant and Catholic thing, right? And somebody back home had this genius idea of, if we send all these Protestants and Catholics to the U.S., surely they'll figure out their differences and, solve the world. So they sent a bunch of kids over here, and the vast majority of us ended up staying here.
Yeah, as you would.
Yeah, so I arrived here in '95 with the intention of staying in Oklahoma for a year, and I still have not figured out how to leave.
Very similar story to mine then, yeah.
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 What did you think when you came here in '95?
What an awful
place. Was it after the bombing or before?
It was after the bombing,
okay.
and having perspective of Oklahoma from '95 to where it is today, like, it's really hard to explain to people the difference in this state, and especially the city, from '95 to today is just night and day.
Yeah.
It was just, for want of a better term, in the mid-'90s, it was a desolate wasteland.
Yeah.
And it's just a fantastic. Again, my intent was to leave, and the place is amazing.
Yeah, I got here in 2011, so I remember the Devon Tower was still had cranes around it and was still being built. So I've kind of seen, the restaurant kind of explosion, but obviously you've seen everything,
microbreweries,
the coffee and the microbreweries and everything, but you've seen it obviously before that.
Yeah, when I got here, Hefner Road was a dirt road going around the dam, and that was the northernmost part of the city, and you didn't go north of Hefner Road.
Yeah.
And Bricktown and the whole downtown area, man, it was just, it was awful. Yeah. Awful.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a transformation.
So do you guys meet in that first year, or that's how you,
We met in college.
Okay.
At Oklahoma City University.
Okay, go Stars.
Yeah.
Wasn't Stars back then, though, was it?
It was the Chiefs, yeah.
Yeah. I went to Southern Nazarene, and it was... Now it's Crimson Storm. I think there was Redskins before that.
Yeah, that's right.
So we were in the same conference for a long time.
Yes.
A lot of my friends have played golf at OCU. It's... both universities have changed so much, which is for the better, I'm sure. But so when you came here to go to school, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do, or was it just I'm going to do a general business degree and I'm going to America, I'm 18 years old, I'm going to figure it out?
General business, play soccer in college, sort of figure out the world, and go back home.
Yeah.
And then met Jennifer pretty quick.
Yeah, OCU is a small school.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And so we all knew that there were 2 Irish students coming. So everybody was excited.
That's right.
It's not like it is now, right?
No.
Where like everyone's an international
Yeah.
OCU.
I mean, there were quite a few international students, but we had not met anybody from Ireland.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah.
so the campus was all abuzz before classes even started.
Yeah. You show me like, oh, this guy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Brilliant.
So, Jennifer, what's like your kind of Oklahoma upbringing before you go to OCU?
Actually, I was born in Oklahoma, but then quickly moved to Kansas till I was 9, and then the Panhandle of Texas is where I ended up living until I graduated high school. And then I looked to go to OCU because I wanted to major in dance.
Okay.
So it was big dance school. I auditioned and got in. And so that's where I ended up going. I changed my major after a semester, and my degree is in advertising. But
Okay.
it was that program that helped me figure out maybe dance is not the right fit for me.
Yeah.
I wanted a little bit more balance in my life.
People who know OCU will know it for pageants and dance and performing arts, right? Because it's a powerhouse in the state. And
It is.
pretty much in the nation for that stuff. And it was funny, all my golf friends who ended up going there, I asked them like, what was your visit like? And they're like, they just walked us through the dance school. Like, look at all these Miss Oklahomas that go to the university. Like, don't worry about going to a bigger state school. Like, this is where you want to be. And that's like, how they convince you all the golfers to come in.
Yeah.
No brainer. And the golf coach did a very good job of reminding every player. I think that the women and guy ratio was significantly
It's
different.
very unbalanced. Yes,
Yeah,
there's so many more
That
girls than
that was a
boys.
huge selling point.
Yeah.
It's what? Okay,
Yeah.
sounds wonderful.
Right. So you guys meet obviously pretty early on while you're here, and do you do what I did and get married and stay that way?
Got married.
Okay.
Yep. I joked that I married Jennifer to get a green card.
Yeah,
so
we
could
have the
stay.
same jokes then.
Yeah.
My wife hates that. But
Oh,
yeah.
that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. Got my green card and ended up staying here. And it's sort of, I don't know what the experience is like today, sort of going through that immigration world of the U.S. But back then it was pretty horrible. So we had to fly back to London. Is that right?
We got married in December.
Yeah.
And then we quickly left so that you could finish your degree at Queen's University. And I got to finish my last semester of college there and just transfer my hours
How much
back.
fun is that?
It
That's
was
really
pretty
cool
awesome.
to do that, right?
Worked out
Was that the
well.
first time you'd been back?
That was the first time I had ever been to Ireland. First time I had left the country.
That's awesome.
And I grew up in a small town, so Oklahoma City was big city to me.
Yeah.
So to go from there then to Ireland, it was definitely, if you can get out of the U.S. and kind of see how big the world is, I can't recommend it enough to people.
Yeah. Did you want to stay?
I knew I always wanted to live here in the U.S. And back then it was different over there. Like we basically have a 24-hour life here.
Yeah.
Over there, if you get sick at 3 a.m., at that point in time in the 90s, there was nowhere to go like a 24-hour Walgreens or Walmart to get, cold medicine at that time of night. So just it was a different speed of life.
Everything shuts down at 5. We had half-day Wednesdays.
Yeah.
All those things. The pubs have docker hours, and you're like, there's a pub open at 7 in the morning?
Yeah.
Like, yep.
This is a dark place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When we went back for the first time was over Christmas, and I had this photo of my wife in the airport when we left. Like she's bawling her eyes out in departure lounge, and I was like, "Why are you crying?" She's like, "I don't want to leave." I'm like, well, you've come here at the best time.
Yeah.
Christmas is the best time because everyone's off work, everyone's happy, and I'm having a good time. Come January, first week of January, everyone's back
gets
to work.
pretty
It's
miserable.
right? Which is it's and I think every time we go back, she kind of sees it more and more. But also, she'd love to live back there.
Yeah.
Because it's different. But obviously, the castles and all that glamorous type fairy tale world, right?
Yeah.
When you put working 9 to 5 in the mix, No. When you come home, it's dark.
You go to work in the dark and you come home in the dark, and it's pouring rain all the time.
Oh, it's miserable, isn't it? Yeah. So then when you graduate and you come back to the States, you have you're married, you have your visas. What do you guys decide to go into? You're in advertising.
Yeah, but I was a little behind the ball.
Okay.
Because, everybody else had already gotten their jobs lined up, and we didn't get back till mid-June. Mm-hmm. So they all start that process in April.
Yeah.
So I ended up at a radio station, helping the advertising department as my first post-college job. And then
sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
Always.
And so I sort of lucked into the technology world and been in it ever since, and had quite a journey through that of large corporations, startups.
So is this like peak tech boom, like late 90s, early 2000s?
Yeah, and sort of rode that wave. Carried that off into oil and gas for a while in the tech world there for quite a while, actually. So it's funny you're talking about the Devon Tower. So I ran quite a few teams that helped build that.
Oh, wow.
Which was just an amazing experience to be a part of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. That's like a pretty big moment in Oklahoma City's like history.
It really,
right?
and I don't know that I fully sort of recognized that at the time.
Yeah.
It was just like, man, we've got this massive project to do.
Yeah.
And when we started it, one of our big challenges was really, you have to think 3 and 4 years ahead. So you're doing all this stuff in the tech space, trying to think, well, what's going to be here in 3 years from now? And part of building that. I'll never forget sort of the scariest experience was while they're constructing sort of the skeleton, they had a lift or an elevator on the outside. That's how you got up to the floors. And it was sort of one of these, it went up every so often and then had to catch itself and went up and up. And it was a 25-person elevator, and they just load construction workers into it.
No thanks.
Oh, it's just terrifying. And then you're going up this thing, and there's about a 1.5 foot gap that you have to step across from out of the elevator onto the floor. Yeah. And it's literally just straight drop down.
So when you saw that guy climbing the tower this year, you just thought, this guy's off his brain.
Oh, he's just nuts. Just nuts. Yeah. And the fins and those bars, they're not the most secure things in the world. They're not designed to hold a person.
They're there for aesthetics, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I saw that and I was like, this is mad. Like I've always had kind of like this weird dream of like being a golfer and hitting a golf ball off the top of it.
Yeah.
I've never been up there. I don't even know if there's room. Just to hit a ball out there towards the park would be really cool. But yeah, like just standing on the edge looking down. Even when you go for dinner and you look, I can't look down, I have to look out.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, I'm not a fan of heights at all.
Yeah, there were a bunch of us who were involved in the construction of that, and when they were putting sort of the final beam in the roof, we all got to sign our names on it, which was really neat. Yeah. But it's still neat to sort of say, I had a part in putting that thing up.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool. Yeah. The radio world must have been a bit mad at that time too, right? Advertising radio world.
I mean, it was an AM station.
Okay.
It was a small local station that I was at, so it was not too crazy. Yeah. The crazy was like the Ackerman McQueen and that big ad agency. That was the big place to go to at the time.
Well, a lot of people, I was spoken to a designer recently, and a lot of people don't realize how big the agencies are in Oklahoma City in the ad world, right? Like as small as Oklahoma City is, we have a pretty big worldwide agency footprint, which is mad, right? Yeah. And obviously the Ackerman McQueen, and then Jordan is the other big one.
Yes, yeah, those were the two big ones. Yeah. When I was first looking for a job.
Yeah. So how does the cycling come into things then for you? Like, I know obviously you have kids and stuff, but like how does most people know you for cycling and being in the gravel world and the gravel scene that's kind of really kind of caught fire, I guess, in the last few years. But when does the biking come into it for you guys?
Well, Alan was in it before I was. He's always kind of ridden bikes, and it was good for to keep his health in check. Because as you start having kids, Dad gains weight along with Mom while she's pregnant.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So
stress works both ways, right?
Yeah. So So I've primarily been a stay-at-home mom. And I didn't start riding till 2018 myself.
Wow. Okay.
So my cycling journey is more of like a health journey. Being a dancer, I always worked really hard to be flexible, maintain that. And I weaved in and out of dance even through being a mom. I would take classes and I kept up with that. Eventually going into teaching Zumba. And that was in like 2010. And then I had injured myself. I had a hip injury. And I couldn't find a doctor to help me figure out what it was. And I spent a couple of years in really bad pain. The only comfortable position was standing. So sitting or laying down made it hurt. And it was all involved in my hip and my low back. Eventually I figured out I have just an underlying genetic condition. It's called Ehlers-Danlos. It's hypermobility syndrome. And so my joints will slide in and out of socket, and that causes micro tears over time. So it's kind of can amp your pain up. So then I spiraled into a horrible medical journey of pain. And they sent me to psychiatrists because it was in my head because they couldn't figure out what it was.
Which frustrates you even more. Like I'm in serious pain and you don't believe me.
And you're not believing me. Yeah. So eventually getting into pain management clinic and getting on a lot of medications. And so I became pretty sedentary. And honestly was in like a 5-year-long depression. Put on 45 pounds from medication usage and being sedentary. But before I got into that really bad dark spiral, I had a hip surgery because I had a surgeon who figured out, well, you have a torn labrum and your hip socket is all rough. And so let's smooth that out so things flow a little smoother in there. But we had kind of got in a bad way. Alan and I have always gotten along really well, but through my dark
really
spiral,
tests the relationship, right?
It was really hard.
How old are the kids at this time?
So this would have been the worst through 2015, 2016. So my kids were born in 2001, 2002, and then a 2007 baby. So
you're also dealing with
years.
them being in their teenage years as well, right?
Right.
One doing club soccer, literally
everywhere.
Traveling everywhere. And the other.
And I was running that soccer team as the manager, which is a time-consuming job that you don't get anything for.
So we joked that at that time frame, we were nothing more than roommates. It was like, see you later. See you later.
Divide and conquer with the kids.
Bus driver. Those places.
And
So you had that surgery before?
I had that surgery in 2013. But because things were flared up, that pain, and because I was put on a bunch of medications, which elevated how my body perceived pain. But I reached a point in 2018 where I think we had really made my oldest son's 16th birthday or 17th birthday a horrible day. And reality hit me. Like, this is not cool.
Right.
I need a change.
And I guess I assume this, but the things keeping you guys together at that point are the kids.
Yes.
Right? Because you're like this is, going through that period of time for both of you is miserable. Right? But you have your kids. So
right. You're just head down doing the work. Or for me, it was existing as the smallest version of myself.
Right.
At that point in time. So I had been sort of watching Alan ride his bike and become interested. Like, that looks like that would be fun. I really like physical activity. Obviously, I've done it my whole life. And I like that hard work. I like it when you push your body to the brink.
Dancing's not easy. That's... Wow, okay.
So our very first ride, he took his full suspension mountain bike. He's 6'2". I'm 5'4".
Here, ride this.
And put the
Come to a
seat
stop,
all the way down.
Yeah.
And then took me out on gravel because where we live, that's the easiest thing to ride. It's just right outside
Right.
Right
our
in front
neighborhood.
door,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And cycling during this whole phase for you is probably just a release, right?
It was an
Just
escape.
Escape. Just
Straight
get
up
out
escape.
there and
Yeah, because when I sort of finished playing soccer in college and then played a little bit here and there afterwards around the city, knee surgeries, knee injuries sort of catch up to you. And so same thing is like, okay, I can't run much anymore. Put on a ton of weight, and then it was like, I just got to do something different here. Got to do something to move. And so there's a local mountain bike race series that's been going on for a really long time. And we had a friend of ours who said, hey, you should come out and just try this. And I did it. My first race, finished dead last by a long, long way. And so I was like, okay, I can't just sort of do this and finish last. I've got to keep doing it. And so I grew up back home with a bit of a motocross background. So, parents shoved us on motorbikes and said, here, just go fast that way.
that's awesome.
Yeah. And so mountain biking was just kind of a natural progression from that.
Yeah.
So I started out doing a lot of mountain biking and back then, and, because of where we lived, it's, where's the closest place where I can ride my bike without getting hit by a car?
Yeah.
And it's dirt and gravel roads, so I'd disappear off down those. And it literally was an escape, sort of a peace and quiet, a way to get away. Yeah.
And then I guess you find the good thing about Oklahoma, and it seems like the community around gravel, and it's starting to change, I think, with the general road community, where you see like the wheeler crit thing that's happening. But I guess the gravel community is, from an outside perspective, looks extremely welcoming.
Yep.
And so, you probably found a lot of friends during that time, and you find your tribe, right? You find your community that you're like, this is our thing. And the kids are getting to an age where they don't need babysitting, so you guys can do your thing, right?
Yeah, we joke now. We still have a third kid at home, but we never see him or hear from him. And it's like, oh yeah, here, you watch the dogs. We're going away for the weekend or disappearing off. But yeah, it's been interesting to see sort of the gravel world evolve in Oklahoma. When we first started, it was, there was a very small handful of folks. Jack Christian out in Elk City, sort of one of the original guys of riding on dirt roads in Oklahoma. And then obviously, Bobby Wintle and then Land Running out Mid-South came along. And I remember doing I think it was the first or second Mid-South, and there might have been 30 of us out there, muddy roads, sort of figuring out what on earth are we doing out here. And it's just that community feel and community aspect of it that's evolved over time. It doesn't matter what kind of bike you have or what you're wearing or how fast or how slow you are. Everybody's out there trying to figure out their own experience of that. And so, that's evolved sort of over the years, and now this scene's exploded, and now you even start to have, cliques within gravel now, which is so funny to me. There's the pointy end of, they're out there to go super fast and to win a race. And then there's folks at the party pace are like, hey, is there booze somewhere along here?
Like every aid station, there's beer.
Yeah.
And
is there Fireball?
Food and fire.
Yeah. So it's been really cool to see. And then weirdly, Oklahoma has sort of been the center of this universe from the beginning, and it's sort of exploded out from there. I think it's just been fascinating to watch it. We were up in Lincoln, Nebraska earlier this year for Gravel Worlds, and it's kind of funny, you travel across 3 states and you get here and it's like all these faces of people you see and right?
From home.
Yeah, and you're like, wait, I'm, halfway across the U.S. here, and it's, these folks I see and I know.
It's just like a normal race night or a Guthrie bike night or whatever. Like, it's just, oh, guys, you're here. So,
yeah. So, and I think when you first started riding, You got hooked pretty much straight away, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. I like all the input that gravel provides. There's, visual input, there's the sensory perception, like it's, you have to focus and pay attention where you're riding, and choose a good line and all of that. And then you have the trees and the red roads. I love that. And then the cows, all the animals. There's bison up by us.
Yeah.
So I regularly ride past a herd of bison on my little, even hour-long rides.
Yeah.
When you get out into rural Oklahoma, like those back roads, 99% of folks don't go there.
Yeah.
And there's so much to explore and see out there. We discovered a castle out, what would that be, just northwest of the city that these folks built a home, and it's right in the middle of nowhere, and it's a literal castle that they've built as their home.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I saw you guys cycled up to Ishans, right, recently?
We did.
We did.
That was
my first visit to Ishans ever.
Oh, it's so good.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And the lady is like, it's you can't just get like a sandwich. It's a whole chicken.
Half chicken, full chicken, and then what is your side?
Right.
And I love they just come around, they put paper on the table, they just put it in front of you.
Yeah.
And the bread and it, it's mega.
Yeah, we did that, and so
I didn't understand the chicken situation. I didn't understand you got all the
Literally
chicken.
a chicken,
And so I ate one piece of chicken, and then I just couldn't leave it there.
No, you can't. No.
So I wrapped it up in the foil, and we were on our bikes, and I stuffed it down my jersey pockets. And it was hot, so I had to unzip my jersey and zip it behind my back to create an extra layer, like a barrier.
So you didn't get burned. Yeah.
So it was kind of like had a jersey cape for the rest of the ride.
Well, they have a brewery down the street now too, right?
Yeah.
Did you
Yes,
swing by
they
that
do.
place too?
what's it called? Expedenture or something.
Yeah.
We were there early in the day, so we
Yeah,
didn't
it
go
wasn't
by
open.
then.
Good spot.
Yeah, and you can actually, so I've ridden there before, you can sit at the brewery have a beer and actually order food from Ishans, and they'll bring it down.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I think that's sort of the neat thing about the gravel scene is it takes you to these small rural towns.
Yeah.
Like Guthrie has a huge gravel scene, Stillwater. It's out south towards Tecumseh and Shawnee. It's taken off too. Yeah.
Goldsby.
Yeah.
I had Tammy Fate in here recently.
Oh yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, and like and I didn't know about her like lover of the outdoors and bike thing, and a friend of hers mutually put us together, and she's like, you gotta ask her about her cycling. So I asked her, and she's like, oh yeah, I just did a 75-mile ride out to Union City, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So that was really cool to kind of hear his story. But so it didn't take long for you to get your first bike then after that ride together.
I was starting to say, I don't know if riding is for me, like maybe 10 days in, and Alan goes, don't judge it based on this bike.
Yeah.
You need a properly sized bike. And I was like, they have sizes of bikes? I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah.
So we got me an aluminum full suspension, really heavy mountain bike.
Yeah.
And that's what I rode for
a while.
a year, I think, and just would do little rides by myself. Like that's my preferred way to ride. So I would do that after I dropped kids at school.
Yeah.
And then eventually, I think that's when it was 2020, and I ended up getting a job in a bike shop.
A bike lab, right?
At Bike Lab,
Okay, yeah.
That was my
You got
first.
sucked into the bike industry.
And I got sucked in.
Yeah.
And getting employee prices.
Oh, much better.
I got myself a full suspension, all carbon wheels mountain bike.
And it's a big difference from a heavy bike to a light.
You could lift it with a finger, right? Instead of
it just changes the whole experience,
That's awesome.
right?
But riding that other bike made me strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're building strength and fitness no matter what bike you ride.
Right.
Yeah.
Most people, you mentioned mountain biking. Most people would probably just laugh because like Oklahoma doesn't have mountains. How can we mountain bike out here compared to home, right?
Yeah,
the downhill scene at home is massive, right?
Yeah.
And that's his background, really,
that's
is mountain biking.
There's a bunch of good mountain bike trails in Oklahoma. down, Lake Thunderbird, McMurtry, like the list goes on and on and on. And for the longest time, especially in the mountain bike race scene, Oklahoma was really competitive nationally.
Yeah.
We had a number of national champions out of here, and that was always, when we travel, the thing was like, how are you guys doing this? It's Oklahoma. There's no way you have trails, right?
Yeah.
It's like, we do, and they're pretty technical.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and there's, that world has taken off as well, a little bit, which is good to see. The Tour de Dirt race series has been going on a really, really long time, and it's still sort of a vibrant community of folks that are there, a part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I love is the kind of like, I was up at USA BMX headquarters in Tulsa, I don't know, a few months ago, and just got to see like that scene too, and I had no idea, and like the facility they have up there is incredible. But it just seems like cycling in the state is massive, regardless of what it is, right? And now, like it, the indoor and the outdoor, whatever, that kind of thing. But when I ran the Mid-South 50 in 2020 for the first time.
Oof.
I completed it first time. Last year I ran it in the snow and I didn't finish it. But I had more pictures taken of me running in the snow and not finishing than I did the first time I finished. So I'm going to do it again next year. But it was the first time, like, I found myself, I ran the race on the Friday in 2020, and the Saturday, I couldn't take my eyes off the, who's the guy who followed in his truck, Overland?
Vermont Overland.
Yes, I could not
Ansel
take
Dickey.
I couldn't take my eyes off his Instagram story covering the entire race.
Yeah.
It was incredible. And I was like, I got to get a bike. And then I was like, I don't have the money for a bike right now. I'll just keep running because I can buy running shoes. And I hate running, but I just seem to put myself through it every year. But just that, like, kind of Payson and all those guys from the Team USA or whatever, coming into it from the road world, right? And you're like, and I think there was a kid from Oklahoma who was on their team, Orange Seal team at the time, Kai.
Oh yeah, Kai.
And I was just like, this is a thing now, right?
Yeah.
Like the buzz of Stillwater and just that whole scene, which obviously you've seen grow out of the ground, right? Like that's Bobby and is it Sally?
Turner,
they've been on the podcast and kind of just talking, and starting with nothing to like. There's people coming from all over the world to do this race, and now you can't even get in, right? Like it's amazing,
and it's been super interesting to see the evolution on the sort of coverage side of these events. In years gone by, you had sort of your big corporate media, and how you cover these events is it's flow bikes, it's big corporate media, and now it's sort of switched and flipped. And I would say Bobby certainly has been a pioneer in this, along with Andy Chastain out in Arkansas. When he started the Rule of Three, he just grassroots, hey, we're going to do this event out here, no idea what we're doing, but here's what we're going to do. Oh, and can you just come in and like post a bunch of Instagram stories for the day? We'll stick you in a truck and just sort of follow around at the front. There was no plan or vision or strategy. It was just, hey, see if this works. And lo and behold, it did, and it just went nuts from there. And so that concept of, certainly being both at the pointy end and back in the party piece of actually interacting with folks in the middle of a bike event is crazy, right?
Yeah, it puts you right in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Cool. And it's funny to see like the cars, like, we're not going down, right? We're going to catch them up because we can't get through that pit, right?
Yeah.
They cross the water and stuff, and it's like, this is nuts. And then that Saturday was a really tough day, right? I think it rained maybe.
Yeah.
We had perfect weather for the Friday race, and then it absolutely pissed down the Saturday. And then last year it was terrible. On the Friday it was snowed, and then it melted.
Yep.
And on the Saturday it was fast. It was so
perfect.
It was
right?
perfect.
Yeah.
It got a little windy.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's Oklahoma.
Yeah.
You have to ride in the wind.
Yeah.
Wind is Oklahoma's version of hills for cyclists.
Sure. And I think that's the thing that sort of is, what is the secret sauce there? And I think it is that it doesn't matter if you've won 10 Tour de France's and you're a world tour rider, you're lining up alongside, Jim from Guthrie, Oklahoma on his 50-pound bike.
Who is a local legend that can push 400 watts.
Right, who's right there beside you. Yeah. And that was, I think, was it this year, one of the best things I saw out of Unbound up in Kansas was Peter Sagan showed up. He didn't show up to race. He just showed up to sort of experience it. Yeah. He was helping folks change flat tires.
You're used to watching this guy sprint to the finish.
Right.
He's the legend for that, right? Yeah. And he's this guy is handing out paint sticks and changing tires.
Yeah.
What is going on here?
It's brilliant. It was so good.
Yeah. But that's the gravel vibe.
Right.
Yeah.
So different from the race bike world, right?
It really is. And I think you're starting to see that bleed over, right? So with events like Wheeler Crits that have exploded as well.
Yeah,
it's really brought that community feel down there. When Chad and Evan sort of had this idea of what they wanted to do something different there than just sort of a normal road race. Yeah. How do you make it more welcoming to folks and how do you get a community to turn out? And lo and behold, they knocked it out of the park.
That's amazing. Yeah. We've been down a couple of times to take the dogs down there and just eat some dinner and hang out and just watch everybody race. And the good thing recently is just watching, obviously, the women's side of things that's grown. And just, you guys, it seemed, from what I can see, it seems just this year it's really kind of exploded. And you guys have your own race now and you ride together and you have matching jerseys. And we have a friend who's in it a lot. She's mainly a runner, and her sister owns Plant, Emma, Addie Ryan. Yeah. So I met Addie through her sister Emma. We did a few podcasts together, but just seeing her, she just loves the outdoors in general, and she seemed to have jumped into the bike world and is now wow, this is my thing, right? So it's been really cool to see. Yeah,
there was a push. Chad last year, really wanted to bring more women to it, and I think it's when you're talking about racing and competition, sometimes women will shy away from it a little bit more than men will. It's the same what you've noticed in jobs, that a man and a woman will look at the same job posting. A man will go, I have one of the qualifications of the 10 listed, I'll apply. Yeah. A woman will say, I've got 8 out of those 10, I better not apply. Yeah. And so it was just we pushed last year to make it not feel intimidating. Hey, I was scared to do it at all. I don't like the whole turning thing. Right.
And there's been multiple crashes, right? One of the times I was there was an ambulance showing up. I was like, whoa, this is not good.
Yeah. And so, one of the things I'm really pushing myself to do is step into fear, look at what's driving that, and not let it prevent me from growing and doing the things I want to do in life.
Right.
And so I just, put a story out there. Hey, let's all come do this. That there's no cost. He waived the fees for the Wheeler Crit, and we had women show up. And then
you guys get 15 to 20 consistently, right?
Yeah,
seems like it.
The women's cycling world in Oklahoma has just exploded in the last couple of years, and years gone past it was sort of the same 2 to 3 folks you'd see out there on bikes, and now it's just taken off. We just did a bike packing overnighter last weekend, and it was 2 dudes and 6 or 7 women. Yeah. The women outnumbered
loved it
by far.
Yeah.
And that's our friend Karen Christensen, pushing in the women's community as well. There's a number of ladies who are just pushing and driving and inviting. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Everybody wants to be invited. You may not want to go do the actual thing, but that invite is huge. Yeah. Everybody wants to feel included.
For sure, yeah. Well, and also it serves as a community for anything, right? Back to your experience, it could have, if you'd had this community, it might have helped tremendously more. You never know. But people going through this stuff now, and how kind of COVID has just accelerated mental health issues. Having a group of people, regardless of who they are, that you can go and ride together, or go play soccer together, football for us, or whatever it is. It just does like, have you seen this OKC Hot Girl Walk thing recently? Have you seen that?
No.
What is that?
Oh, it's hilarious.
Oh,
Okay, I mean, I love
this.
it because like I'm a marketing nerd. This lady started like on a Wednesday. I think it's like Wednesdays from like 6 to 7, and she just put on the Instagram title is OKC Hot Girl Walk, and it was like everyone we're just gonna meet, go for a walk for an hour. And
Brilliant.
now there's like hundreds of people showing up
Love
to it
it.
in like the space of like I think it's every Wednesday in the space of like 3 or 4 weeks in a row. She's grown this entire community.
That's
and my
brilliant.
like real estate marketing brain's like that's the way to build a community, right? That's incredible, and it's free, and they do giveaways, and people sponsor it now, and like genius.
Yep.
No one's gonna come up with a guy one yet.
Yeah.
Well, it's hot guy walk. It's not really how we do things, right? But it's just like that idea of like community and just. Yeah, just come. We'll go for a walk. Like,
Yeah.
it's easy. It's simple.
Yep. And that was
someone's got to do it.
Guthrie Bike Nights, same thing.
Yeah.
That thing started out of a handful of us just meeting up there at Hoken for coffee.
Yeah.
You know, let's just go ride.
Yeah.
And now it's become a thing. And
You have a logo.
yeah, and even
Yeah.
outside of Oklahoma, you hear folks talking about, Guthrie Bike Night.
It's mad.
And I think a part of it is, Trey up there just has a location that's very welcoming
Yeah.
for folks. And it's neat to see. And it helps that Justin's tied in deeply with the city of Guthrie, and they're like, yeah, just do whatever you want.
Yeah, just don't cause any issues and
Right.
it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you keep the police away and
Yeah.
they're happy, then we're good to go.
Yeah, and it's taken off, and there's it's almost become a tourist thing up there of, hey, if you're coming to Oklahoma,
Bring
you need
your
to go
bike,
ride. Yep.
Yeah.
Guthrie Bike Night.
So to add value to anyone listening who might be just thinking, wow, the gravel world is something, or cycling world is something that I really want to get into. I mean, well, how would you start if there's, if you could start again and everything you know now, what would you do?
I would say just jump in. Don't be afraid.
Right.
Everybody needs a place to fit in. And I think that sometimes the cycling world can feel intimidating and exclusive. And there's these, I have no time for the whole rules of cycling. I don't like people to tell me what to do. So don't tell me how long my socks should be. Don't tell me I have to wear spandex if I don't feel like wearing
Is
spandex.
that a thing?
It's just nuts.
I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm in the golf world. I
Yeah.
get that, right? Like, and I'm like a stickler for tradition in the golf world. Out here, the golf tradition is terrible compared to back home, which is understandable. But I never thought about that being in the cycling world.
It is a bonkers thing, and I think that's part of at Wheeler we wanted to break that image
Yeah.
and break that curve. So like Jeremy Houchin, good friend of ours, and myself, we would show up to the start of a race each week in a different outfit. One week it was Britney Spears t-shirts and cut-off shorts.
And then the next week she got her emancipation.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah, and initially, folks were like, what are they doing?
Who are
Like,
these guys?
yeah,
Yeah.
why are they not in spandex?
Yeah.
And so I think it's just breaking those norms and those perceptions. But I do think sort of, and you see it in these Facebook groups all the time of, somebody will ask a question of, hey, I want to get into cycling. What type of bike should I get?
Right.
And it just, you end up with 75 comments from folks just telling them, oh, you need to do all, and it's like, just find a bike and go ride it, man.
Yeah.
Just go.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
jump on it and go.
Yeah.
Go get yourself to either
Go
if
to-
you have a friend who is knowledgeable,
Yep.
or go to a shop and get information, because that's having the local shops.
Yeah.
They are full of information. They can help guide you. Make sure you get the right size bike, and then I can't recommend getting a bike fit
Yeah.
enough to people, because you don't know when you're starting out that you need to set your seat at a certain height, and you need to figure out where your feet are on the pedals, and you need to get your reach right where you're holding bars. So that will change your cycling experience. And then riding with some type of, like, the right size saddle, and the shorts, the pants with the chamois in them.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
most important.
Yeah.
But you also have to give yourself time, especially starting out.
Right.
You can't jump in and go, I'm going to go ride my bike for 2 hours. That's not the way to do it. Then you'll be sore,
Yeah.
I've
and
made
you'll
that
hate
mistake.
riding
Yeah,
bikes.
I've
and-
cycled too far out and then tried to come home and just total. I couldn't even stand up. It was
Yeah.
terrible.
Did you have to make the call of shame and get picked up?
No, I just sat at a bench for an hour and waited for my legs to wake up. I was cycled from I live pretty close to like kind of Wiley Post area, so from my neighborhood it's like, I say close, it's from my neighborhood it's 5 miles to the bridge at Overholser.
Oh, okay.
So then I
Yeah.
rode from there down to the Ferris wheel and back, and thankfully it's a nice, quiet,
Yeah.
paved cycle path, right? So
Right.
there's benches along the way, and I was cycling back, and just I was like, I can't move my legs now. Why is this? And I just sat down, and I was like texting my mum back home. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, currently sat on a bench in the middle of nowhere because my legs hurt. And there was people passing me like, "Are you okay? Like, do you need anything?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm fine. Like, my legs hurt." And I made it back to my mother-in-law's house, which is like a mile from the Overholser Bridge. And I called my wife. I was like, "You have to pick me up from your mum's house because I don't have energy to cycle 4 miles
Done.
home." Like,
Brilliant.
yeah. But you got to go through that, right?
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
the, it's the fun side of things.
Yeah.
Right? You laugh about it.
And it is, I mean, it's a growth for folks as well. You know, we were laughing a few weeks ago. Jennifer was looking back at, you know, one of her first rides was, I think it was 16 miles. Is that
No,
right?
6.
6 miles, a 6-mile ride. And, you know, she's like,
And I thought I was going to die.
it's so hard and so difficult. And, you know, this year she's racing up at gravel whirls.
Right.
You know,
Fully
just
into
killing
it,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nearly 80 miles, yeah.
Yeah.
I
And that's
would
the
not-
good thing is like, it's just like mentally, right? You think, wow, it's 80 miles, but you get into it. And if you put in the reps, like,
Yeah.
your muscles will do it.
Yeah,
Right?
and I think a lot of times, you know, people get so focused on going so fast and hard that their focus is sort of the wheel that's right in front of them. And one of the things that we always tell folks is slow down and pick your
no
head up
rush.
and look around because there's a lot to see that you've never seen before. You know, in Lincoln, we were blown away by just endless cornfields.
Yeah.
You know, it's stuff you'd never seen before.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last thing then, tell me about this kind of G3 series that's kind of coming and happening in Oklahoma that I guess people who are at that level that they're like, I want to go race stuff. I want some regular thing to be racing in. What's that all about?
Yeah, so it originally started Ray Trammell 3 years ago.
I think it was 2019.
Yeah, wanted to put on a grassroots gravel event, gravel series, and
To
really,
help people work up and build up
Yeah.
mileage
To
when they're
enter a
looking
Mid-South
towards
yeah,
thing,
and,
yeah.
and
to
it was
do the
such,
Mid-South.
such a great idea and a really good execution of it. Really basing it out of Guthrie back then. Of we'll go 3 different directions, and for the 3 races, we'll take a cumulative time. You know, and it was really a thing of, hey, anybody can come do this, and the distance itself was like, oh, that's, you know, that looks hard, but I think I can do that. And so you got a lot of folks showing up that were in that
30, 40 mile range?
yeah, and
It's
60.
it's 65.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was, man, that could be an all day thing for me, and
Yeah.
and folks showed up and did it, and so Ray really, you know, it was Ray himself and a handful of volunteers. He's like, this thing has grown bigger than me, and I need other folks to sort of help do this. And so they then came up with this concept of visiting other Oklahoma towns to do events out of there. And so this year, the first one was out of Tecumseh a few weeks ago.
And John Earhart.
John Earhart.
So he has people running 2 of the 3 races.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That they had already been talking about running their own races. So the Tecumseh race, and they've expanded as well to offer kind of an entry distance,
So there
like
is
a
a shorter
distance this
yeah.
year. And there's been a push last year and this year to try to grow the women's field in the G3 series, and a lot of the community and shops, Wheeler Dealer and Capital Co-op have helped to kind of
That's really cool.
try to make the women's purse, like prize
Equal.
money,
Sure.
more equal. And And so that's been amazing to see them champion the women's community in gravel.
Going to visit Pawhuska, Oklahoma this weekend is where the next one is.
Well, it's the beauty of it, right? It takes you to places that like you probably wouldn't go to to cycle.
And what's been fascinating is like when you go to these places, the promoters of these events have talked to local ranch owners. They're all in on opening up their land for us to ride through it, and up there, it's this one huge ranch. The families said, "Yeah, we don't ever do this, but we'll open it up to you guys, and you'll get to ride through a portion of it, and there will be wildlife, bison, cattle." And you're
so awesome, right?
Yeah, it's really, really neat.
So this is going to be a route this weekend that you won't be able to go out and ride in 2 months.
Yeah.
Because it's somebody's private land.
Yeah.
That's special.
And then the last one is out of Guthrie. And that's Ray's one that he's putting on. And I think, is that in November?
That's the first Saturday in November.
Yeah.
And then that will be the series finish.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah,
those people who are racing will figure out if they've won or not on that date. But then there's most people who go out for it who are not racing.
Right.
You know, it's just
to see the land.
They're racing themselves. Or everybody sets their own personal goals, you know. I want to have this mile per hour average over the whole ride, or
the first one, it was so hot that day that there was a gas station, and folks were going into the gas station just laying down on the cold floor just to get cool. And the folks that own the gas station were just, what is happening? Do you guys need anything?
Well, I know of.
It's like all these people showed up wearing spandex or other clothing. You're like, where did you come from?
Right.
And covered and have like dirt unibrows and that kind of thing.
And they're buying me out of all my food and my water and my Gatorade.
Well, that particular gas station, I think the owner, somebody didn't have money and just said, here.
Just take it.
Just take it.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So just Oklahomans taking care of Oklahomans.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. Yeah.
Which that's the great thing about riding gravel. You get to see. I have people stop all the time and ask me if I need water when I'm out in the middle of nowhere on a dirt road.
That's so awesome.
They're just kind.
It's so different than, you know, when you're riding in the city and you're super cautious about cars and vehicles and getting yelled at. And then you sort of go out onto dirt roads and these pickup trucks are slowing down and asking, do you have enough water? Are you okay?
There's a safety aspect too, right? Like it's so much safer out there.
We had a guy the other night as we were going out backpacking, local farmer pulls up and goes, hey, just so you guys are aware, it's deer season, so just be cautious of, you know, there will be folks shooting around you.
You're not in high-vis jackets. Right. You guys aren't aware of what's about to happen, right? Yeah. That's amazing. Definitely made a great decision to stay then, obviously.
Yeah,
Like,
for
can't
sure.
do any of this back home. That's awesome. Well, for people listening, I guess the last thing is, what is kind of like, you know, the communities online, you know, everyone's on their phone. Obviously, they can follow you guys on Instagram, and I'll put your links to Instagram in the description below. But last thing with like, what are the resources that people can go to, or the groups on Facebook or whatever that you can use that you can ask those questions, those forums and stuff to, you know, so you don't get 75 responses back and a bunch of other stuff. So
I think
places that add value.
Yeah, the ones that add value. I say local bike shops are the sort of the thread and glue that holds all those things together.
Yeah.
You know, it's a great place to start in person is, you know, find a local bike shop and go in there and talk to those folks. They'll steer you in the right direction. And then there's a bunch of online Facebook groups. You know, there's different ones in Oklahoma City. You know, we have a Saturday morning gravel ride that we've done for years. And we just started a tiny little group for us to communicate this thing, and it's now got thousands upon thousands of members, and there's now folks from out of state who are in the group posting their out of state events. I mean, you know, obviously it's like, hey, there's a huge audience in there. But any of those groups, OKC Gravel Grinders.
There's the OBS.
Oklahoma Bicycle Society.
Okay.
They're a good resource.
Place.
They have a lot of maps if you're doing road type of riding. As far as mountain biking, there's the Oklahoma Earth Bike Fellowship.
Yeah.
Um,
The Tour de Dirt group for mountain biking can't go wrong there.
For women, we have started a Facebook group that's a private group, so anybody can ask questions, communicate, and organize rides. And it's the OKC Women's Cycling Gravel and Road. There's also a page that you can follow, so that's open to anybody to follow.
Great. Yeah. That's amazing. Such a good resource, right? And that's the good thing about, like, people are so willing to help.
Yeah.
And they're like, come join our community. We'll love you. Like, this is awesome. We need more people. We don't need more people, but we just, like, we know the good it's done for us.
Yeah.
And we're willing to open this up. And it's, you know, it's really cool to have that. Because some sports and other places are like, no, this is us. We're doing our own group. Like you said, now it's grown to space where you do get those little clicks.
Yep.
And I'm sure they get kind of figured out pretty quick. You're like, hey, you need to start, pull your head out. Like, this is not, we don't do this here.
Yeah, and for all the ills and sort of bad things of social media, right? Because there is sort of negatives.
Of course.
There is positives of being able to have these groups of communities of folks that you can contact and get in touch with. Because I honestly don't know how you did that in the past. I think it was phone calls to a couple of folks. Yeah. Of, hey, we're gonna go ride bikes today.
Right.
Yeah. Old school SMS
you'd meet
messages.
At church, or you'd meet at the pub and be like, should we go ride on the weekend? Like, you're right. Like, how would we? Yeah. It's strange to think back, like how things happened and how people kind of got together back in the day before you could send an email. Which people listening are probably like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
We used to send carrier pigeons to each other. That's what we used to do, right?
And there's a place for everybody, no matter where you are in your riding journey.
Yeah.
There are places to start out on if you want to get involved in group rides, and most of the bike shops will know.
Yeah.
I know there's Monday night women's specific beginner rides that are posted on the OKC Women's Cycling page. And then there's rides on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturday mornings to all different levels. You just have to find where you are, like your location in the city is one piece, but then also where you are and how fast you can ride.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy now to think in Oklahoma, you can pick any given day of the week and there will be an organized ride on that day.
So good.
Yeah.
Right. Get off your Peloton bike and go out and get some sun on you.
Exactly.
The world.
You need that sunshine.
I am guilty of that. My wife is very guilty of it, but I won't. Well, she doesn't listen to the podcast, so I will say this: we bought a bike. It cost more than mine, and it's been on the rack in my garage longer than I think my car has been parked in the garage. So anyway, I need to get her back out. But,
brilliant.
You need to sync her up with me. Get her on the bike.
That's the thing. Like, we've been down there, so she's like aware of it. We need to get her back out. So and now she's great on her Peloton bike, so she has like that initial kind of fitness side of it, right? So it's not that there's no fear factor in like, am I going to be able to perform? It's just the convenience, sadly.
Yes, absolutely.
But anyway, we could go down an entire rabbit hole about the Peloton clan, and I'm part of it, so whatever. But thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. For people listening, I'll put your Instagrams in the description so they can reach out, follow you, ask any questions that they feel they need to, and find out some information. And hopefully see you on the gravel or on the tarmac sometime soon.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Cheers.
Thanks very much for having us.
All right. For people listening, we will catch you next episode. Cheers.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And finally, our third sponsor for today, the Oklahoma 988 Mental Health Lifeline. 988 is the direct 3-digit lifeline that connects you with the trained behavioral health professionals that can get all Oklahomans the help that they need. Learn more by visiting 988oklahoma.com. It's 988oklahoma.com. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.